I know that is technically the more interesting of the two, but I was gonna make a joke about the fact that we barely saw any Thatcher bans yesterday, so it feels kind of fresh and new again.
Did we see one Thatcher ban yesterday?
Maybe. Yes, I think we did in like our last game or something like that. But
I honestly don't remember, but it wasn't something that we were like, oh yeah, Thatcher's getting banned out. Like, it was the opposite, wasn't it? Thatcher was hella available.
Hella available. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me with Buck being banned. The thing on Villa is, especially if you're attacking onto the AVG site, which is oftentimes the primary site, Buck can be incredibly useful for pressuring onto the site itself from down below in library. That's where you very typically see him get used. And then, of course, if you are attacking onto a kitchen site as well, he can help with the soft destruction of opening up the floor above. I'm not sure if any of these players are directly associated with Buck in the same way that we would with Alamau, for example, where it's always a target ban, but he is certainly a useful ban to have on Villa.
Yeah, the reverse vertical is very handy indeed. But, of course, there are multiple ways of trying to deal with that. You can implement the Zephyr, or you can try and throw grenades as impacts, or use Ash and... Only 2 breaching rounds now, but still viable option to try and work with some of that vertical play and remove some shields from whether it be inside of Aviator or games. Kind of strange to not see the Flores be brought, honestly. We saw so much Flores play yesterday, so many shields on Villa that are super difficult to try and get rid of, and you've got to wade through whether it be ADSs or magnets, whatever it might be. And those Flores drones were just such an easy way of removing those power positions, so... At least not for the time being. Santos have opted for what seems to be quite a standard lineup. They've got the soft destruction in there. They've got a little bit of hard breach. They've got some flank watch. They're ticking a lot of boxes.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that strange, does it? And I actually think that when Yana started to see favor in being used in competitive Rainbow Six, Villa was one of the first maps that we actually saw her kind of popularized on. So this is almost just old school in a weird way, because we see Yana used a lot, especially since she got her Gon 6. But even before that, it's all about the nades, dude. So yeah, nothing too special about what Santos are choosing to bring. INTZ are holding a defense up here on the north side of the map, as well as down towards the site itself. And it looks like Santos are preparing themselves for a north side take too.
Ooh, early engagement there as Destiny will find the frag over onto Hornetau. He takes a chunk of damage. Is that going to find his opening kill here inside of the BR6? Nice little bit of a refrag. Still, the pressure coming in from this bathroom area. Vitz in a position to try and challenge. For the time being, INTZ playing this very aggressively with this extended hold into Trophy and Statuary. It's really giving Santos something to worry about. Is that going to try and play aggressive on this? Almost as the players lining up perfectly for him. Look at this confidence here, Gio.
I mean, the way that Santos have to take this is either through the bathroom or through this narrow doorway of Master, because they can't get the stat wall open. It's electrified, and they've brought a Hibana. They don't have a Thatcher. So they don't have the options there. Hunter getting the next kill onto VNX gives Santos the man advantage, and you can see that they're going for a rotate. And I think this is the right idea. They've realized that it's too much of a risk to come in through this north side. You've got to deal with your Runegates, you've got to deal with those choke points, and you've got to deal with a lot of defenders. Now is the right time to decide to go to the south side of the map.
That rotation has happened, as you see a couple of players shifting from that statuary area in through toward places like Study and the top of Red Stairs. Rise still trying to watch this flank, searching himself out for a frag, and he will find one. Vitz was playing extremely patiently there inside of Astro before being taken on down. Drunks with a really important engagement there onto those main stairs can reactivate that laser gate, but is now left in the 1 versus 3. Does have a C4, but with the line of sight open, it's going to be very difficult for him to do anything about this. He knows he's pretty low health. The plant is going to start going down. He's not really in a position to get a nitro cell through and stop that from happening. Destiny, he's going to be able to wiggle his way on through, find a nice line of sight there. It wasn't much, but it was enough to go off.
I really liked that round. I thought that was a great round from Santos. You know, they went for their approach over on the north side. They picked off a couple of players. They were very disciplined in when they decided to make a rotation back round. And the amount of pressure that they could apply to everybody else remaining on the south side was sufficient for them to push through, especially when it was just Drunks on his own at the end. And with the Hibana holes that have been made into the bar wall rather than what we typically refer to as the study wall, which is the one that is adjacent to Aviator, it meant that where he was hiding out behind the bar wasn't as safe as he would have liked it to be. And that also made it way riskier for him to pull out the C4, which is why we maybe saw him switch back to the TCSG instead. So a nice opening round from Santos, and it's going to lead INTZ to actually return back to AVG, maybe with a different idea though. Most of their operators have changed here. There's no Aruni, no Kaid. So it suggests to me that we're maybe not going to see quite as much of an extended hold. The Kaid was brought to electrify the statuary wall, which would have protected those defenders who were up on the north side. But if you don't have that, then maybe it's going to be much harder. You could use the mute jammers, and we have seen the statuary wall being blown open, which suggests that maybe that's for sound cues. But I would assume that they're going to have a lot more of a defensive focus down towards the south rather than letting themselves be picked off up in the north.
Plenty of shields as well, this time on the side of INTZ, as it was a comment that we kind of made earlier that Flores wasn't being brought, and we were kind of wondering, is that a reaction that INTZ are now going to try and play off the back of? As far as what you guys at home think, 75% backing INTZ in this one. Obviously, the result of that poll came in before the first round. At 2,500 votes as well. I'm not going to attempt to do the quick maths on stream, Gio, but that's a lot of people.
Yeah, 3/4 of them have decided that INTZ are going to win.
I thought you were going to come out with the... I was hoping you'd be there with the calculator in the background, like working it out, you know? And then you could come out with the number.
Well, 3/4 of 2,000 is 1,500, and 3/4 of 500 is 75 times 5, which I'm not going to do.
See, this is why you don't do it on stream.
No, I don't, because it's more pressure on me to get the maths right because I'm technically qualified in it.
But the problem is, someone in Twitch chat has already written the answer a million times, and we're just sat here like, yep, it's not something that I'm going to put my name to.
No, I'm here to cast. I'm not here to do maths. You guys can...
See, we're being told what the number is now, but I don't even trust that. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, are we?
I don't even trust Chunks and he's saying 1875. I don't trust that. I don't know if he's just trying to make us look silly.
I don't care what the number is. I care about Rainbow Six. And ooh, okay, I was gonna say nice nade. It wasn't actually the nade that got the kill. It was Zach who got a kill at the exact same time. But it was still a nice nade to be bounced off of the pillar. That means Destiny has been taken straight off. I don't know. I actually didn't get to see how much of Destiny's utility had been used at that point. But there's still nades. Okay, well, there's 2 nades still on the board to be used if Santos need it. And as you mentioned, those shields that have been brought along, utility that needs to be cleared, could be significantly harder now for Santos, that they've lost a lot of that explosive ability.
STK could get really caught out here. If he pushes in off the back of that Gemini and the info that he's gathered, he's going to get himself into a firefight. Not only VNX, but Zach is also in a position to try and work on this as well. VNX going to confirm the frag over onto Cons. Rise, no, you can't be going for the default. You've got to try and keep yourself alive. And he does just exactly that. But again, we're finding ourselves in that situation where Rise is that last player standing. This time, he's in the 1 versus 5. He knows exactly where the player is on side of 90. But Hornetau had the read and was more than happy to peek, confidently knowing that he had another 4 members of his team to back him up if he missed.
And there's definitive proof that it was a good idea for INTZ to return back to AVG, make adaptations on their defensive strategy and the style that they wanted to go for, and it worked for them. That means that they can comfortably move on, and it looks like it's going to be Living Room Library, unless they change it at the last second, but no. Living Room Library is where they're going to go. Now, I would happily predict that Santos are not expecting this to be the site that they're going to. Now, they will, of course, find it out pretty quickly once they drone in through the prep phase, but this is not the typical secondary site for any team of any region.
It's not. It is a site we've seen a couple of times in Brazil, but it's typically played when a mirror is available. Now, a mirror is available here, but a mirror just hasn't been chosen. You typically play it with a mirror. You typically try and open quite a lot of the site up and kind of play for a bit of a retake. You've got to have control of that top floor. There's a lot of vertical angles that you can try and work with and use. So it really needs to sort of be an interesting defense, I think, here from INTZ, and they need to try and bring that. Okay, they're bringing us to this sort of third, fourth choice site. What are they going to try and do, and what are they going to try and show us? Because there's other really good sites that are available here.
I'm very intrigued about this. Typically for living room library defenses, you see a lot of upstairs presence, particularly over in vault, because you can hold the angles through the floor and basically holds back any attackers from moving into the site itself. So this will require an upstairs clear. We do have some presence from INTZ downstairs as well, I think, but Zach is a great example of someone who isn't downstairs. Actually trying to hold on to the angles through into study, where Santos are potentially looking to enter into the map in the first place.
Let's see where the push is going to start to try and establish from here from Santos, as Onatau's got a little drone that he's been able to capture with Mozzie's Pest, and he's going to be able to place that somewhere in and around 90. It's going to give him a lot of vision and multiple lines of sight that he's going to be able to try and hold. He can only hold long, but he can also hold short as well. Zach playing up on these main stairs in a position to challenge over onto study, but he's not even going to need to. It's going to be Drunks that finds the opener. Hornetau second. The kills are flooding here for INTZ.
STK getting aggressive here. There are going to be some toxic gases, but he does find the kill he's looking for. Santos are just making their way straight onto site, catching VNX from behind too. He wasn't expecting that. And even though there's just 2 players remaining of Santos, this could give them an opening they need. But right as I said, STK goes down himself.
Rise again, last alive. Really is a very common theme here with Santos. He's got a chance here. He's in the 1 versus 3 and he's got over a minute. He's inside of sight. But has he got any information? The answer, I would wager at this point, no. You can see Echo drones coming on in. In fact, it will be shot on out. Flash could be enough to buy him a little bit of time here. Not being in possession of that diffuser is going to be quite a big problem. Now strangely looking to try and get himself out of the site, or at least give himself an option to retrieve said diffuser. He needs to try and make this rotation. Information is available for him. There are a couple of drones out there. It does all depend on where they are placed. I think Hornetau's done a great job this time with his Mozzie Pests in terms of capturing those drones from Santos. There's been at least 2 that have been captured by the Pests, and that's just given so much intel away. Going to be able to recover the diffuser with around 15 seconds remaining, but realistically, what is he going to be able to do here? It's a kill almost once every 3 seconds at this point if he tries to push his way on through, and it's unlikely that players are going to stack up. Can't even get through the vertical as Drunks, well, he finishes where he started on top of the pool table, picking up that final frag.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I noticed when Rise was put in that situation, is you had 1 player still upstairs from INTZ, as well as 2 who were guarding the site. And that's very hard to push through if you're just 1 person, especially if you're lacking in the information. It was certainly interesting from Santos to go about it the way that they did. It wasn't quite as methodical as we've seen other teams do, where they spend a ton of time trying to pressure the upstairs and trying to clear that out. In this case, Santos kind of decided to get aggressive onto the ground floor as well and burst their way through the site, which for some time did seem to work out for them, but they were still at a man disadvantage, which I think put them at, well, a disadvantage. When STK finally got brought down, it basically meant they had no other options left. If they had found the kill instead of STK being downed, then it would have been a 2 versus 2, and that probably would have become way more viable for Santos. But the issue that they found themselves in is essentially a gamble. Right? It's like, we're going in, we're taking this strategy. Had they won that, we would be sitting here being like, wow, commend the bravery. That was so cool. It paid off. What a great gamble. But instead, it went the other way. And so we get to see where the dangers lied there.
There was a passionate conversation going on there in the INTZ camp. Santos do look a little bit more toned down, a little bit more jaded after a couple of rounds really haven't gone their way. We're just in a short break at the moment because any eagle-eyed viewers at home will have noticed we did lose Destiny just before that last round concluded, so we're trying to get him back on into the server. INTZ for the time being looking pretty good. Kind of very similar to the way that we saw them finishing off Stage 1, Geo, and being able to very patiently and very consistently pick up these final couple of rounds. I'm going to jump back on into the game now as everything is going to be ready to rock and roll.
I think one of the things that INTZ improved on so much towards the end of Stage 2 was their ability to coordinate. And that seems like such a simple, such a basic thing, you know, have 2-3 guys together and coordinate their utility and their engagements. But it was a huge thing for them. And I'm thinking back to the game that they played against FaZe, that crazy game on Clubhouse. And the way that they all played very much as a team. You could tell they weren't individuals. You could tell that they weren't lost in the maze of what they were doing. And it feels that way this time as well. They actually feel like a team who have glue and adhesive holding them together. And while it's still early in this series and could feasibly go either way, it's just nice to know that that wasn't a blip and it wasn't a brief period of success. It could actually be something that continues forward.
We have got to be slightly mindful of the fact that this is Villa. And Santos are a team that are known to struggle with vertical play, and that could somewhat have been a reason and a factor into the site choice that we saw coming out from INTZ in round number 3 when they went downstairs to Library. The comment that we did have from Santos yesterday was that they were trying to just do everything at once. And that really isn't something that flies on Villa. You've really got to try and tick those boxes. This might tick a box for STK as he does a beautiful grenade there, able to cook it perfectly, take down Hornetow. And it's a frag that has been gained at very, very little expenditure on the side of Santos. One singular frag grenade is all it took. Vit's now in a position to try and creep down 90, but flank is currently being held by Destiny. And now try and hop his way on in and maybe try and take the firefight, but players on the side of INTZ are scurrying back towards Statuary and getting themselves a bit further entrenched. Pretty much the entirety of that north side has now been taken control.
Yeah, 90 was entirely free for Santos to swing in, and a lot of that is because of the rotations that INTZ made to ensure that they're all together up at the top of the map. Now, Santos is still clearing from the south side, but there shouldn't be too much impedance in this, just because there isn't really anybody in the way. It's when they get to that landing area that they're going to suffer the problems of pushing up towards this north side. So the drone's given them a bit of information. They found one of the ADSs. They probably saw the player behind the bomb chassis too. But as you can see, there was a lot of barbed wire there too that's going to have to be dealt with. Another drone to be sent in. That'll likely be shot out as well. And Santos are in, you know, the last 45, 30 seconds-ish of the round. They actually need to get going with this. In goes their ex-Kairos to get rid of the Surya gate, but they are preparing themselves for an engagement.
2 more Toxic Babe canisters in the hands of Drunks as well. Is to make it quite easy to stem that flow of attackers pushing through the single doorway. We always heavily criticize these single doorway pushes because they can be cut off just so easily. Still 1 Toxic Babe in pocket, placed out at 15 seconds, will perfectly deny a push, but not before somebody tries to sneak on through. Immediately, however, it will be taken on down. STK desperately trying to get the plant as Rise is going to be covering from the Astro Repel. The plant is likely going to stick here as Vitz gets caught out of position. VNX not in a position to try and deny. STK looking to try and hold on. He finds another frag. Puts VNX in a very difficult spot indeed now. He knows that the players are going to be somewhat split up. Has he got the heads up of the player on these east stairs? The answer is going to be no, but he's got such a narrow hitbox to try and land a shot. STK coming in clutch. Picks up the plant, picks up the final 2 kills. Big response.
Wow, that could have gone either way at the end there. And to be fair, if it had gone in the direction of INTZ, they still would have had to deal with, you know, the diffuser, getting rid of that. So it would have been an instant win, but it does even up the round count at this point. I liked, again, the way that Santos went about their approach, the fact that they stuck to their guns. They didn't allow themselves to feel pressured. Even when we look back to round number 3, and you mentioned that in the interview yesterday, they said they were trying to do so many things at once. That's what round number 3 felt like here. And I suspect a lot of that is to do with maybe a slight lack of practice of dealing with Living Library, feeling the pressure, just feeling that kind of down your neck. Whereas this time, they felt way more comfortable and they stuck to that and they knew within themselves what it was they wanted to do. And that was very similar to what we saw back in round number 1 as well. Clearly, that is what it's going to have to take for things to work out for Santos. And it's not exclusive to them. It's just not something that other teams necessarily have to think so much about. INTZ returning to AVG. So they did win it back in round 2. And this is actually the exact same operator lineup that they brought in round 2, which was that time that it was successful. It's the adaptation they made. So I don't see them going for a strategy that's going to be wholly different from that. They focused way more on the south side, stuck closer to the site, didn't have this really extreme off-site play, didn't try to hold Astro like they did in round number 1 quite as much. And they let Santos come to them, and they took the fights as they appeared.
Santos still going with that almost cookie-cutter approach of which operators they want to try and bring. They haven't made any changes in the 5 rounds that we've seen. Still not opting to bring the Flores, which is something that we saw quite heavily used yesterday, especially on Villa. But seemingly they're able to get the job done without, and Destiny certainly feeling some confidence there, going to be able to take down Hornetau. Hornetau just gets caught running away. Not really the way that you want to be going. Getting caught out on the rotation without really having a chance to fight back.
He was the first kill a couple of rounds, or the first death rather, a couple of rounds ago too. It might have actually even been on round 2. I can't say. I directly remember. So, I mean, the Banshees will be out. But oftentimes you see a Malusi playing that kind of roam-ish role. If you're going to have anyone off-site, you would safely expect her to be one of them. They do still have VNX on Jaeger. And Zach is actually downstairs too, although I suspect he's going to be moving up the main stairs at this point and try and hold on to Study. A lot of the push from Santos is coming in from the north side, and Hunter is going to be the first casualty for that side of things. VNX actually returning down to the basement. One of those things we talk a lot about with Villa is how the basement can be used. In this case, it's being used for a big rotation and barely touched by the attackers.
It's regularly a place you can get a rotation off for free, even with a Nomad in, because there's almost too many options to try and think about placing your air jabs in those locations, and for the amount of times that you're actually going to hit, can be sometimes not worth. SDK has got himself onto the rappel here into Study. May be able to find an angle onto Zach. He can at least pressure and restrict Zach's movement somewhat. Still 2 C4s available on the side of INTZ, as we've seen them have to lean into that denial before, although previously, even though Drunks had full Toxic Babe utility remaining, it didn't matter in the end. So hope that those C4s and the Toxic Babes are able to do something now as we enter the final 24 seconds. Rise, you can actually plant for free there behind maps, as it is not going to be covering him. The second one will come on through. However, the frag goes down. VNX on this dangerous flank. The Toxic Babe canister gas coming in as well from Drunks. VNX, the player that was unaccounted for pretty much for the entirety of this round. STK finds himself too, but I mean, you'd hope they were impactless, and they were impactless. A 1 versus 4 under those sort of circumstances would have been pretty spectacular. It's going to be Zach to close out that round.
Yeah, I'd have been impressed. I think running through Study was never going to yield particularly positive results. Really frustrating there for Santos, because they had the opportunity to go into Aviator, but the problem that they faced, of course, was the fact that they hadn't really cleared out anybody from INTZ. They were just relying on the fact that they were not in that exact location where they wanted to plant. you don't necessarily know where the defenders are. I don't know how much information Santos had on the location of the defenders, but my assumption would be that if you had a lot of information, you would have secured more kills than you did. So the problem with that is you are once again running on a gamble. And you go in for the plant, you have one opportunity to do it, because if that planter gets killed, you can't really recollect the diffuser. You can't go for something else. You can't necessarily just plant in the same spot, because the defenders will know exactly where you are and they'll flood in on you. That's exactly what happened. That's what INTZ did. All they did was get the planter, and then suddenly all these kills came raining in because they knew exactly where the attackers were. So again, it was like, great, you got to where you needed to be, but you hadn't actually checked off all the steps that you had to ensure your safety and make this more secure than just a gamble.
Final round before the side switch. See how we're going to end this first half of Villa, if it is going to be at the 3-3 or if we're going to see INTZ manage that 4-2 split. Neither would be too unusual. There's certainly been opportunity for Santos, but you do kind of worry about their last minute approach to things and the fact that they've not always got all of their ducks in a row. You can see this time that SDK is not going to hit that and instead is nearly going to take himself out. Just cooking the nade for a little bit too long. We can see obviously with the observer view that there was nobody there in the first place, so wasn't going to be quite as impressive as the opening frag he was able to get a couple of rounds ago in the same fashion. It's certainly not going to put him in a good position to start taking long, extended gunfights, especially when we've seen Toxic Babe canister gas be so prevalent from drunks, and how he's more than willing to keep hold of them and, more importantly, keep himself alive till the dying few seconds to use them.
Yeah, that is one thing. Santos haven't necessarily caught out, the denial operators as much. In early engagements, it's always been like Hornetal, for example, people who you expect to be way more prevalent in the early round. Whereas, if you catch a smoke off early, or you hit the gold mine. That hasn't been something Santos have done. And that's a lot because of where Drunks positions himself. He doesn't veer too far from the site. And Santos come in kind of methodically from the outside. They don't really rush in and pressure those kinds of positions. But it does mean that those options are still there. Now, this is, of course, a kitchen defense. But Santos, again, playing kind of horizontally, trying to open up the wall with the X-Kairos, and you can hear them go off, but I don't know how successful their push-in is going to be, given that we've seen what their lateral pushes have been like in the past.
Vitz this time maybe gets caught out on the drone. At least anyone flicking through those drones will know that he is no longer there, provided that has been communicated correctly. Still, he's in a dangerous position to make those rotations. It's very unpredictable as to where he's going to come up from. Drunks is going to be pretty much hugging onto bomb chassis. There's a line of sight for him to worry about. The holes that have been opened there by Cons is going to give a small line of sight and a little bit of exposure. Cons will find the opener though as the flood starts to come on through, picking up the second kill. Ivana, after opening the wall, turns into a little bit of a slayer, and that's exactly what Cons is doing here and now. The plant is going to go down, and it is going to be confirmed. VNX, he has to desperately try and scramble his way down. Astro Cons, he stepped up in a huge way. He said, there's no way we're finishing this at a 2-4. We want an equal 3-3. VNX is going to be the man that has to stand in between that, though. 1 versus 2, 25 seconds left. A chance for him to pull this off. Still a C4 left in pocket. At this point, it's just going to give him a little bit more line of sight to try and work with. As the time continues to tick, the two remaining players on the side of Santos are not giving themselves up. Destiny with the final swing, and that confirms a 3-3 half.
I don't think it was the approach, honestly, that INTZ were expecting from Santos. I mean, usually when you think of a push onto kitchen, you either think of a very, very vertical hold, and then eventually you move down the Astro stairs, and once you've picked off enough people, you can kind of pressure in through China, for example. or a laundry push. If you're going to go completely laterally, that's where you would expect it to be from. You wouldn't usually expect it to be from Zulu. And where they've opened up the soft walls in Memorial, of course, it means that those lines of sight are there for anybody who's playing on the site and they want to be watching out for attackers pushing in. But as soon as you have a breach that's been opened right there, those lines of sight can also be used by the attackers, and it forces the defenders to react to that. Their positions are designed to be responsive to an approach that they're expecting, and it certainly wasn't that. So I think in a lot of that, we saw members of INTZ looking around for where they thought the attackers were, where they thought they could hear them, but not necessarily with really solidified information. And especially once the plant went down, you're put in a lot of pressure because someone's gotten in, someone's made that plant. You know there are people around you, but where the hell are they? That's what it felt like from the way that INTZ were reacting.
Could be a good split for INTZ, or it could be something that does come back to hurt them. Santos played quite well yesterday on the defense over on Cafe, so there's a chance for them to try and turn things around here. That big round from Cons as well is going to do something to potentially lift the spirits. If they can start to try and chain some of those rounds together and see players like Hunter really start to hit his stride, be quite a dangerous recipe for INTZ to try and go up against here. Initially, we're going to be going for a very similar north-sided take. STK opens things up with a C4. We didn't see a lot of C4s landing from INTZ, although they were bringing a lot. It isn't something you can say, yes, they were making great use and they were getting plenty of those C4 kills, but STK opening things up here and now. Big change here in the lineups that I see, Gio, is the addition of the Flores. It's something INTZ have chosen to bring straight away.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to see how that's going to go, because for me, you know, you've only got one shield to deal with. I suppose you can blow up the Vulcan shields, so I suppose you have 3 shields to deal with. And there's the Malusi Banshees, so yeah, there's plenty of utility you can get rid of, but I also think that on this site particularly, you know, let's say you want to clear out Vault. You want to ensure that there's no one standing in Vault. That's such a small space that you could send a Flores drone into, go to detonate it. You have to force a defender out of that area because of that. So, you know, when we look at the fact, okay, they did bring a Yana, so they were maybe thinking of nades to help clear out utility. They've got 2 more nades from the sledge as well. Don't have a Zafir, so they can't rely on lifelines to clear utility. It could be used for either. I suspect utility is, of course, going to be the priority. You certainly could use it to clear out some of those smaller spaces.
Molotov just going to be hanging around downstairs as he now looks to try and make quite an aggressive approach, but he himself is going to be taken down by STK as he picks up 2 kills for the round. BNX is going to be holding on to these east stairs, but needs to play a little bit more aggressively than this. You see Destiny caught in a bit of a rock and a hard place. Going to find one. Surely you can't get the second here. No, it's going to be Rise to swing on around. He'll say, don't worry, buddy, I will come to your aid. He's the ADS get burnt. Knows exactly what is awaiting him. Santos successful on their first defensive round.
Yeah, INTZ got picked off quite quickly in that round, so it gave them very little power with which they could push forward. And I think after those first couple of picks, they just looked so reluctant. Like, there wasn't that much, you know, gas. And I'm wondering if that's going to be a pattern going forward, you know, how INTZ are going to respond if they do receive early picks. Is it going to slow down their push? Because on the defense, that's not so much something you need to worry about. They are quite stationary on the main core of their defense. So if someone got picked off out on the roam early, it doesn't really change whether you're moving forward because their defense isn't designed to be like that. Whereas on the attack, it's an entirely different story. If you don't move forward, you're never going to reach the site. It could not end up being a systemic issue, but I'm wondering if that is going to be something that we see INTZ struggle with again and again. We'll have to rely on Santos getting those early kills consistently to see if there's a pattern at all. Santos coming to Trophy and Statuary for their second site, so no living room library on their side. as it stands right now. They're actually doing something that I did wonder if INTZ were going to do before, and that is choosing to bring a Wamai alongside the Jaeger just because of the kind of utility they're relying on. Oh, Rise missed out narrowly, but Vitz takes a ton of damage for that jump out.
Vitz really being punished quite heavily there for that one, as still going to be alive and can get himself into a drone, see if he can provide a little bit more value for his team. Again, some aggressive opening from Santos, as they're more than happy to contend and not give anything away for free. STK was seemingly man of the round previously, able to land the C4 and pick up a couple of really important kills. I think Santos did a really good job of singling out INTZ as well. There was nothing that really had the potential to be a trade. That's in part due to the way that INTZ were approaching things, but also the way that Santos were trying to defend. Even when they had the option for those trades, Santos weren't in a position to be able to freely sort of swing on and freely challenge. Destiny's got a super narrow angle there. He's going to get himself out of dodge for the time being, and it wasn't a second too soon as we see the Vulcan shield. That's going to get destroyed.
Narrow angle's being held here, but it's the Gemini to be destroyed by Destiny, but they know that if a Gemini is sent in, then there may not be attackers too far behind. C4 to be sent up, but there was not anyone above it, so for now, that was a bit of a waste. However, they do still have 2 in pocket, so it's not like they need to worry too much about the resources available to them. Hans is just going to get into this corner here in Trophy. There are attackers on either side. Drunk's over on Astro window, and you've got Zach right by Head's door looking to push through. There's not really many options for cons to go as far as directions are. ADS is removed off of the wall, maybe a preparation to push into statuary straight after.
Still outside angles being held by INTZ here, and you enter that 50-second mark. It's really the position that you want to find yourself in. A little bit of bait and switch there from VNX, trying to tease Rise into a little bit of a jump out, but Rise knows better than that. Destiny going to find the first frag of the round as the 40-second mark ticks on by. Arguably not a second too soon, as Zach is looking to flood his way on into sight. Oh no, not like this. Nothing going down as a trade. No potential to get that refrag. A flawless round here from Santos. All they had to do was just sit patiently and wait for INTZ to come to them.
INTZ sent in a lot of utility to try and gain insight on where the defenders were. And I genuinely thought with the positioning around Trophy, they knew Cons was trapped in there, but they didn't know he was prone. So that is one thing that worked against them. And Cons has actually been someone who's impressed me a decent amount so far in this game. He's been pulling in a ton of kills. And INTZ now need to accelerate a bit if they're to catch up with Santos, because they're just one off of map point at this point. They are gonna have to deal with something they're probably not expecting in the form of a Tachanka. Not too frequently we see that. Now, I made a joke that Santos didn't go to Living Room Library for their second site, but I guess it's because it's their tertiary site instead, and maybe they are looking to throw INTZ off just as much as INTZ threw them off. And with the addition of Tachanka, I'm sure at least to some extent they will be successful in that.
There's certainly going to be some throwing off done inside of this round. That much is clear. Not entirely mad about the Tachanka pick, but what I will say is that when we've got smoke being a thing and available in this game, it does fulfill a kind of similar purpose in that you're looking toward area denial. Now, of course, there are other reasons you might be looking to bring it for the gun if you've got a lot of lines of sight that you want to try and open up, or a specific angle which it looks as though Hunter is going to be trying to lock off. Then those are good enough reasons in themselves to opt to bring Tachanka, but we need to see how Santos exactly want to try and utilize that. It has become less of a meme pick, and I think that's something to sort of make clear, is that there are weirdly viable things that you can now perform with Tachanka.
What I want to see Hunter pull them off. I want to see that area denial, you know. I totally agree with you. Obviously, he lost his turret a while ago, and then he got the flamethrower thing. And he's actually prone in Vault. So I'm wondering if he's going to be the guy who's in charge of holding the lines of sight down onto the site that we spoke about all the way back in round number 3. But he's probably going to be doing it with the flamethrower thing. With the fire.
The Molotovs.
He's going to turn everything into fire and basically prevent INTZ from walking into the site whatsoever. And they are going to be forced to burn in the pit of living room and library. Maybe they could find the Tachanka, kill him early, and then walk through freely, because he's the only one who's actually holding on to that line of sight. So if they can gain control of it, then that could give them what they need to actually get in a plant, take control of the site, and win the round.
I like the sound of option number 2.
Well, if you're INTZ, I think you would, yeah.
On paper, option number 2 sounds like the one to go for. There is a little bit to try and wade through to perform that and to get themselves up there and to deal with Hunter, although I say that, Drunks, he is going to find that frag. Now, I assume that that was going to be found vertically, as he is now going to be coming up the stairs. Vits a second over onto STK, and now an EE1D can come on through and root the remaining defenders in place. This is night and day difference here from INTZ. They know this site all too well, especially Drunks, as he's been able to pick up a good couple of kills for himself. It is not going to be a flawless. Cons stands between that and a flawless round, but Zach is there to find the final frag. Let's be honest, Cons was in the ace clutch situation there. Would have been fairly impressive. INTZ, they are going to take a round here on the attack, and it couldn't have come too soon.
Listen, when I said that they would have to take down the Tachanka really early, and then they would have control and blah, 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 I didn't actually think it was going to happen necessarily. I thought it would be, at least if it was going to happen, I thought it would be a bit harder than that. But Santos didn't put up all that much of a fight. I'm going to be totally honest. It was a nice thought. I appreciate what they were going for, but it was clear that they were unpracticed, at least in comparison to INTZ, on how to deal with that side. And when INTZ saw what that major kind of exploitable point was, the weak point was, they just ensured they got rid of it nice and early, and then the entire rest of the team come collapsing in. Don't forget, of course, that INTZ did bring a lion, they did bring a jackal, so they were entirely equipped to actually hunt out the players of Santos, even though the Tachanka himself wasn't necessarily moving and wasn't going to be caught in something like an EOD. You can still find everyone else around them. So you get rid of that point, you get rid of the surrounding players, and it just becomes child's play at that point. So still not yet even things out with Santos, but after a round like that, it certainly makes me feel way more confident that they could do that.
Only one round stands between INTZ and leveling this up, and it wouldn't be unusual for Villa to go in that sort of a fashion where the attackers do come up with a couple of rounds, but really it's going to be about how Santos reply here. They get themselves onto that match point, and then they've got the benefit of going somewhere that they've previously won. It could prove quite significant for them. E1D relatively early there from Vits. It is going to ping out a couple of players, but typically if you are going to move, you're usually feeling pretty safe in that regard, and it's not going to be a huge bout of information that is given over toward the attackers. Well, last minute pieces of utility getting placed on through. There's some yellow pings to work with as well. Hornetau looking to try and wallbang on. Unable to land any significant shots. SDK has got that nice line of sight in toward study doorway. Into kind of playing into this defense that Santos have set up, and that is that they're going to hold fiercely this north side, almost like a half-court defense, that 90 corridor elbow and top of east stairs being that sort of half-court where Santos are more than happy to challenge on from.
And this could be a really strong place to defend, assuming that your player who's over on the main stairs as well continues to remain alive. You know, the integrity of their life prevails. Because as soon as the main stairs player is killed, then it's very hard to hold 90, because the responsibility to hold these multiple angles will be entirely on Hunter. So that's really where the linchpin is for this defense, if that's what you're going to be leaning into. So far, everyone does remain alive. And there's 1E, 1D remaining for the Lion, which they've not yet decided to use, and Cons is going to stand strong still. 2 shields with him. I think he has an ADS there as well. So it's going to take quite a bit to get rid of him. Drunks does take some damage here on the red stairs, and he gets the kill onto Destiny for it.
Constantly being caught inside of the wood bullet. It's giving a stream of information over to Santos, but it's arguably making them peak a little bit more as STK gets himself down for the count. Going to be taken out there by Zach as a Toxic Babe canister will try and stop these attackers from pushing on in this east side, but INTZ have got good pressure now coming in from this study balcony as well, and that's demonstrated there with Vitz grabbing the kill over onto Cons. Hunter feeling the pinch as he's still on top of those main stairs.
Oh,
Rise almost
no.
goes massive. He grabs one but cannot confirm the second. Hunter now left in the 1 versus 3. Multiple angles to check. Picks up the first. Can he grab the second? Ooh, such a close fight. Hornetal will win that one out. Searching for that information. Searching for that last player in sight, but all it took was the call out from his teammate behind him. And here we are. Level. 5 apiece.
Dude, if I were Rise, I would be so upset after that. He didn't know that there were 2 players. So even just that split second where he looked away, despite seeing that there was another guy right behind his first victim, he couldn't react fast enough. You know, that trade could come straight through. And maybe if that hadn't happened, then that could have gone the other way for Santos. But I did say in the previous round, INTZ's victory on round 9 made me feel more confident that they'll be able to even things out in round 10, and that's exactly what they have done here. And it doesn't really matter whether I feel more confident about it. What actually matters is whether INTZ feel more confident and how that's going to boost their gameplay. And I suspect that it can only be a positive thing for them right now. In fact, they've decided to stick with basically the main attacking composition that they've been going for these past few rounds now. They've decided that the Jackal and the Lion combination is really working out for them. It's providing them with all the information they need. The pressure onto the defenders has been excellent. Santos have decided to come to a quaternary site because Kitchen has been not visited by them yet. And I suspect that the way that they're feeling is they need to go for something new, something that that INTZ haven't seen yet, because INTZ have seen their trophy defense, they've seen their living room and their AVG defenses, and they've actually won against those latter 2 as well. Santos get another chance to try something new here, but the question is, if they don't successfully win this one, what is their option after that? Where do they decide to go?
Let's see how INTZ want to try and approach. They've really favoured that Jackal and Jackal and Lion lineup. So used to bundling all of those 3 together. It does often roll off the tongue without really realising. But the Lion and the Jackal being brought here to try and search out this roam game, for the most part, it's doing a really good job. Now, there's a question as to how effective these early Lion scans are and really what it's providing. But certainly later on, especially when you get a player caught inside a Jackal's Inox as well, it can make it quite challenging to keep yourself safe for the time being. Although Destiny will be relatively safe as all the tracks sort of wear off, and he hasn't really moved from his position on Astronomy Stairs. It's arguably more important to try and hold on to that than to drop off and give that ground over. Rye's going to be underneath. Has he got the opportunity here? He's got a C4 in his pocket. He's currently just trying to hold on to the window with the shotgun through the floor, trying to catch out anybody on the hop-in. Could see some success, but for the meantime, Push is going to try and come through that statuary door.
Now, 1 hole has been made in the statuary wall. And INTZ taking control here of statuary itself, beginning to open up the floor so they can provide the vertical pressure down below. Vitz is just checking to see if any defenders are hiding out, any utility, but it looks like they pretty much have entire control here of Master, Closet, and Statuary and the Astro Stairs as well, which is where Destiny was present before. But Zach's just going to hold on to the angle down at the bottom, prevent any rotates to be made by the defenders. And again, another instance of a lot of patience being exhibited here by STK.
The floor is going to be getting opened up, something rotten, and it's going to provide a lot of angles to try and work with, but we all know they work both ways. STK finds the kill there over onto Zach. Rye's going to be inside of the site, looking to try and make something happen and keep himself alive. Still has doesn't have the C4 left anymore. Apologies, Vitz. Instead, he's going to start opening things up with some kills as this push really comes in through tops. VNX trying to get the plant down. Can it be covered? A couple of big kills coming in on the side of Santos. VNX, you can't hold the plant all day, my friend. Eventually, you are going to get taken on down. The covering fire, just not enough there. Santos, they are going to confirm a match point here.
See, there we go. It was the patience that ended up paying off. They knew when to give up the ground that they had control of. They knew when to back off, but they also knew when to spring forward. And even though it was a bit messy at the end, Santos do come out the victors in that round. And as you say, it puts them on match point. They are just one away from taking this. But now we come to that problem that I hypothesized about in the last round, is every single site that they have been to, or every single site in the map, rather, INTZ have seen Santos's defense on. Now, I think that Trophy Statuary probably is the best place for them to go to. The reason being is they've only been there once. It was round number 8. And it's the only site, other than Kitchen, which of course Santos can't revisit, that INTZ haven't won. So even though they will know how Santos played it last time, they themselves have not proven that they have adapted an attack to actually take the site themselves. So there's still that kind of layer of mystery and surprise. Santos bringing this one out, they know it's a defense that INTZ so far haven't cracked. It's probably going to give them the best chance to win this next round.
Let's see if that is a chance that INTZ are going to take here. Both of Santos's games seemingly going the distance. Obviously, we're not into overtime yet with this one in particular, but it has the potential still to go all of the way. It's nice to see as well that Santos are contesting this sort of heavily, especially after the previous season that they had, and INTZ as well, really going back and forward with each other. And there's no clear winner here in my eyes just as of yet. It's representative of the siege that we've seen. The score, we've not seen all too many rounds that have been total whitewashes. Quite often they're close towards the end, and it really does come down to which way the trades go as the push comes through. Both these teams have been slow on the attack, but it has been something that has sometimes worked for them.
Don't forget, of course, that if Santos win this game, then INTZ won't be able to overtake them for this game. They could in the future, but yesterday Santos leapfrogged INTZ in the standings. This is INTZ's chance to undo that, and right now, they're behind. They're going to have to work hard to get it. Hornetow being the first to fall, Zach returning, but there's a trade straight out, puts Santos back in the man advantage, and it's just going to be piled up on.
A much more quick-fire round than I think what we were expecting there, Gio. But typically between these two teams, when the kills start to come through, they very seldom come through in dribs and drabs. It's usually a wave, and that's exactly what we have seen there. 4 versus 2 with just about half of the round remaining. It's a lot of time to be able to work with for Drunks and VNX. They have a lot of information between them. There's 3 drones that they've got. Drunks is going to take this opportunity to hop into his and see if there's anything that he can gather, while VNX just tries to keep himself alive inside of the bathroom. Not immediately being pressured. Santos, they can play this one as patiently as they like. Still got 2 C4s remaining. It's going to be enough in itself to try and work around and try to deal with. There's potential for a little bit of vertical here, as long as Drunks keeps himself safe and gets himself up these east stairs. He's going to have a better chance at trying to buddy up and work together with VNX here in this situation, as VNX is going to be inside of the master bedroom area. This push can be coordinated and a couple of quick kills go in INTZ's favour. It might catapult them back into this one. This is going to be the all-important gunfight right here and now, but no, Destiny, he's there with the shutdown. Cons finds the final frag, and Santos, they do it. 7-5 here on Villa.
INTZ looked at the start of the game like they may be the stronger team, but alas, they couldn't keep it up. The 3-3 at the half, projecting Santos into a win, and that's going to be a very, very good game for them. They are going to continue keeping their spot just above INTZ in the standings for now, but I would say, Ollie, we have seen